Welcome to Last in Line podcast, where we are highlighting, showcasing, and spotlighting great leaders of faith who have overcome adversity, cultivated resilience, and served others in a significant capacity. So settle in and be encouraged by this episode of Last in Line podcast. Hey, I'd like to welcome Jimmy Rex to Last in Line podcast. Jimmy is the founder behind We Are the They, which is a global coaching program, social movement that enables men to live an exceptional life. He is the host of the Jimmy Rex Show, which is one of the most popular podcasts that's out there. He's an author of the best-selling book, You End Up Where You're Heading. He is motivated to encourage people to unlock their maximum potential. He is a real estate expert. Jimmy sold over 2,500 homes and led his team to selling an additional 4,000 homes. He has been in the business for 20 years. His interest and passion expand beyond his successful coaching programs, though, and real estate. He's an enthusiastic explorer who has visited over 99 countries and counting, and that's just in the past 5 or 6 years. He is an adventure junkie. He's a humanitarian in efforts with people like the Operation Underground Railroad. He's been instrumental in volunteering and contributing and sponsoring different things around different initiatives. Jimmy is also a coach and mentor for several leaders and business people throughout the country. He is very, and we talk a lot about this, but he's very passionate about finding the right mentors and finding people that are actually excelling in the areas that you want to excel in, and people who have already arrived in the place you want to be, looking for those people to actually call yourself up and out into what your purpose is, and really actually leveling up and doubling down on investing in yourself. He's big on that. Talk a lot about manhood, masculinity. So with that, help me welcome Jimmy Rex to Last in Line podcast. Jimmy Rex, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Welcome to Last in Line podcast.
Dude, John, thanks for having me on, my friend.
It's good to meet you. Good to see all the good you're doing in the world. It's good to watch a guy kind of living the American dream. And I know it wasn't easy the whole time. I know you put in your time, put in your work, and you've got a lot to show for it. And we're glad you're here with us. My audience is honored to have you. We do something kind of strange at the beginning. We do a little informal, what I call a life sentence, and it's going to be, you're going to complete the sentence for me on 3 or 4 of these thoughts that I have, and then you can elaborate on them as you want. Like, it's just kind of gets the ball rolling. So here we go. Yeah. You're going to complete the sentence here. Growing up, I wish someone would have told me.
I wish somebody had told me that this life is 100% mine, to do it your way. Like, that's kind of the main thing that I guess I would say.
What do you think it was? How did you mistake that?
I think there was a lot of expectations from community, from church, from parents, from family, from culture, of what your life is supposed to look like. And unfortunately, I think, that causes a lot of pain. I believe that all pain in life comes from unmet expectations. And a lot of times they're not even our own. They're these ones that we think, and I kind of like to teach people that if you can embrace the messiness of life, where there's no just one way to do it, there's no right way to do it, it's just this big giant mess. And when you can embrace it that way, everything becomes a learning opportunity or growth, as opposed to, being painful and being a bad experience per se.
Yeah, no, I like it. It would have been nice to know, hey, this is yours to own or steward, really. But God gives you this, and this is your place in the world. And your footprint is going to be what you make it, right? It's not going to be dependent on anybody else. It's not going to be given to you, but you have the ability to shape it. I think you've done a heck of a job grasping that concept. So whoever told you that, or however you found out that, it's great, because I think you're at least showing it to people earlier in life with the work you're doing with building guys and doing the events you do. I do want to talk about later the Roman Candle War. That's kind of cool. I didn't ever.
Wow.
I wonder
Yeah.
how much security clearance you had to get to pull that off.
Look, I'm willing to do a few things that are a little bit, let's just say, non-traditional. I just was at the gym an hour ago, and one of the guys that was down there with us was there, and he has this big burn mark on his side still, and he had it all covered up with bandages.
That's
But
okay. You're a
he
smart.
said,
Hey,
well worth it.
you've been in real estate. You're no stranger to paperwork. I'm sure you have a hold harmless agreement in place.
We got a couple of those. We got a couple of those.
Cool. All right. Here's the second one. In this season of your life, okay, in this season, God is revealing to me blank.
The power of silence and being in solace. My entire life, I've tried to add more stimulus. I've tried to create more noise in my life. And now all that seems like is pulling back. And really, it's all about finding time for me, finding time to just sit and not need the dopamine hit from whatever thing that we're, chasing, and allow for God to speak to me, frankly. And I think that's the season that I'm in right now. That's been kind of the story of my year, is trying to get more and more in tune with that and aligned with that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's irony or if it's like a paradox, but to be able to get to the place where you can push back from certain things and enjoy some of that freedom and that's quiet, you got to sprint for years, and you got to just sell out for years and years, professionally, emotionally, all that, relationally. And then you can then you feel like you might be on a downhill kind of coast. Not that you're coasting, but you
Yeah.
can at least feel the breeze in your hair, right?
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day. It had, it said 200 years ago, all man wanted to do was be in nature, fish, hunt, and hang out with his family. Now we work our entire lives to get small breaks to do those four things,
That's right. That's right. That's
really
right.
screwed this up.
Spend the, all 7 days of the week getting to where we can have those 2 hours in the woods.
Exactly.
All right, here we go. Finish this sentence for me. Men would reach their full potential if I could just get them to blank.
Take action. It's the one thing. I've had over 500 episodes on my podcast now. I've had some of the most successful humans that have ever lived. And all the successful people I know all have the same thing in common, is they're willing to take action. I think it's the one thing that's very underrated. I mean, people wait till something's perfect. People wait till they know exactly how to do something, or they just are afraid they'll get it wrong. They're afraid they'll screw it up. And, the one thing I can say is you're going to screw it up, and it's going to look different than what you thought it was. And whatever you had when you started will not be what you have when you finish. And all of those things are very real. And so the best thing that you can do essentially is just take action. It'll be imperfect, and you bite off more than you can chew, and then learn how to chew it along the way. That's the best thing you can do.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. I like it. And is that I would think that's a common theme in the groups and the events that you put on with the guys. I mean, I'm sure you got a lot of guys that are good at dreaming, good at great visionaries, great, vision casters and just kind of plan and goal oriented guys. But I mean, you can have the most concept, the most knowledge, the most well laid plan, but if you don't ever like push the cart down the hill, right? So is that kind of a common theme that is underlying the undercurrent in a lot of your events?
Yeah, I mean, when I started trying to think about what I had a 17-year career in real estate, very successful, one of the top agents in the country, and it just got to a point where it just wasn't fulfilling anymore, and I started kind of leaning into what I was going to do next. And so what I did is spent a lot of time in prayer, meditation, and we're just thinking about getting that answer. I wanted whatever I did to have more impact, frankly, on the world and the people around me. And the two things that kept coming back to me, number one was, how do I find a group of friends like you have? So I knew I wanted to create community. And then the second thing was, I feel like I'm stuck in life. How do I get out of this place? And so a lot of what I've incorporated into my program is designed to make people uncomfortable. It's designed to get them out of their comfort zone and push them past that level of comfortability, because it's an exercise where, it's a muscle. If you work it, you're going to get better at it. And so if I can get you we jump off this giant cliff on a rope swing, or we go cliff jumping, or we swim with giant sharks, tiger sharks. I just took 70 guys to run with the bulls. And when you're willing to do all of these kinds of things, all of a sudden having a tough conversation with your daughter isn't that big of a deal. talking to your boss about something that you don't need, these things that we avoid, or these difficult conversations are pretty easy to have. And so I just try to help people push past their level of comfortability and learn how to exercise that muscle, so that every aspect of their life, I mean, most of what you want in life is on the other side of fear. We know this. We know that it takes 3 seconds of courage to change your entire life, right? Like whatever you got to do. And so we have those moments. The first time we ever get together, I get them all this giant cliff swing in Utah. You can go to my Instagram, Mr. Jimmy Rex. We got some videos of it up there and everything. And they stand at the top of this cliff, and they have to leave behind, a bad habit, a negative relationship, or a limiting belief. And when they jump off, they come back with a whole new person. And I mean, it's 250 feet to your, free fall. Yeah. And then the rope catches you and you swing through the gully, the canyon. And it's the most terrifying thing I can imagine doing. And that's why I get them to do it, because you have to do it. You have to take that jump. And just learning to do that in life, in all areas of your life, like whatever problem you have in your life right now, it's probably the thing you're avoiding that's going to make the most difference if you actually attack it. And so, I like to tell people, it's one of my all-time favorite quotes. Probably my all-time favorite quote is Tim Ferriss said, the value of your life, the pleasure of your life, the quality of your life is going to be directly proportionate to the number of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And so whatever that thing is you're avoiding, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to go look at.
Yeah, that's kind of almost a baptism on crack in a worldly sense, like to just jump that far and leave certain things behind and then come up a different person, just kind of metaphorically. But that's kind of a cool image. I'm not a big heights guy. I don't know, man. That it would have to be. I'd almost be better blindfolded, I think, if I did it that way.
You'd love it, bro.
Man.
There's no feeling like it.
There's some. Do you live in Utah right now?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of good dudes in Utah, man.
There's a lot of good dudes in Utah.
I see a lot of guys I follow, a lot of guys I kind of align with. I mean, it's just kind of where everybody's landing. I might have to think about it. I live in Texas, though. I mean, it's hard to beat 110 degrees in the shade right now. I mean, it's hard to beat that. All right, here's your last one, and then we'll get into what's kind of made you. Last one here, and this one might lead perfectly into it. My favorite thing about Jesus is?
My favorite thing about Jesus is, that Jesus is, he's just so misunderstood. I mean, my favorite thing about Jesus is that he knew who he was, I think. And he had boundaries. He was firm in his beliefs. So when he was attacked, what didn't bother him. He didn't emotionally react. Yet he stood for something and he loved, and Jesus above all else is love. And so I think that's the one thing he tried to preach to everybody. And so, I grew up in one religion. I left that religion 10 years ago. And your entire life, you're taught to believe a certain way. And I had to reevaluate my entire relationship to God and Jesus and what I believed and what I didn't. And I really love the place I'm at now. And to me, Jesus is the ultimate example of living our best life, or getting to our highest self and sharing love in everything that we do. And so for me, that's what Jesus is all about.
That's good. Now you did this. It was not me. So when I go here, you're the one that started it. Where'd you leave? Where'd you leave? What religion did you leave? And tell me, what was that kind of defining aha moment that said, I think Jesus is the way and not this way? Like, tell me what you left.
Sure. I mean, I grew up Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, went on a mission, the whole thing. And for me, I think my problem with religion in general is I think that they care way too much about what people are doing and not enough about how people are doing. And so I kind of hit a tipping point where for me, I felt like I'd stopped progressing. And I just said, I don't need an intermediary between me and God, between me and Jesus. And so for me, it was just, a lot of things led to that, but ultimately found my place where I felt closer to God than ever, through not being affiliated with a religion, just having that relationship with God and Jesus.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I the main reason for asking that was just because I think there's some people, maybe they grew up Christians their whole life, and maybe they got in a bad, a church hurt them. There's all this church scarring, church hurt. Maybe they got into that quote unquote religious lifestyle and then broke away, and then maybe even went away from that. And then, or maybe they're coming back to Christianity. Did you have a group of people that you were kind of around that sort of helped sharpen you and point you that way? Or was that just a personal decision in religious isolation or spiritual isolation that you went through? Or talk about maybe if you had a community that sort of led you down that road.
Yeah, no, for me, I've always been obsessed with becoming the best version of myself. That's what led me into coaching. I've been to every seminar, conference, mastermind, coaching programs, personal coaches. I've read over 500 books. So I was always obsessed with this idea of just trying to become a better version of myself. And that led me to some places where I started getting some ideas and thoughts that didn't really go together with, the religion I was in or any religion for that point. And so I actually went first out of my family and my friend group. I didn't tell anyone for 2 years when I left. I studied all of this. I studied religion. I studied my religion. I studied all these things for about 800 hours before I made any decisions, and ultimately came to a place where I knew it was just time for me to move on. And in that, I remembered what it was like for people in the religion when people left. And so I didn't want to scare anybody. I wanted to show them that my life was okay. And so I just didn't tell anyone for a couple of years. And I didn't tell really hardly anyone for 4 years. And by the time, it was basically out that that's what had happened, people could see that I was on a path that was working really well for me. I had started working with Operation Underground Railroad and doing some other things that brought a lot of significance and spirituality to my life. And so, yeah, so I kind of did it. I kind of went on my own. I did have a very good group of friends that was very supportive no matter what I did. I knew they wouldn't care. I also have a family that, about most of them, I will say, were very supportive the whole time. Almost all of them were supportive at the beginning when they found out. And they've been pretty good for the most part for how that can be. And so I haven't had a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of people have when they come from a very religious household and leave.
That's good. No, that's a good answer. I mean, I just was curious what got you to that point. And it sounds like you just kind of did some soul searching and literally. And no, I mean, you mentioned Operation Underground Railroad, and you had some experience there with Tim and that group and the trafficking scene and that kind of thing. What I didn't really, maybe I planned to ask this a little later, but since you brought it up, like what got you there connected with them? Like, how did you get what was passionate? It stirred something. Obviously the topic itself is passionate, but did something stir in you to get you to propel you with that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anything's an accident. I mean, being in Utah, that's where the organization was started at. I would go to this, there was a networking meeting that I went to, and they had a man came and spoke about 6 months after they had launched, named Paul Hutchinson. And in the movie Sound of Freedom, he's portrayed by Eduardo Vergassi. Pablo's his name in the movie. And that guy spoke to our group, and he spoke about this operation they did where it was the one that's in Colombia in the movie. And every part of me was just touched. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be a part of this. I need to do this. And there was a part of it that they don't share in the movie where there was a kid that had been kidnapped from Haiti named Gardy that really spawned Tim to want to launch this whole thing. And I had worked that same month that I heard Paul speak. I'd gone to that orphanage where he was kidnapped from, just complete coincidence. So I'd met that kid's dad. I'd seen the orphanage and all these coincidences. So I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And so I'm really good at getting in the room if I want to be there. That's how one of the main topics I teach on is networking and connecting. And so I started doing my thing and started creating enough value that they wanted to have me around, raise some money for them. I helped organize some events for them. And ultimately, I started taking some training, and they let me go on an op, my first one, about 6 to 12 months after that, and went really well. I speak Spanish, and which was really helpful because they're going to Latin countries. And I learned that on my Mormon mission to Mexico. And so I'm fluent in Spanish. And so that was super helpful for them. And I was, raising a ton of money and paying my own way. And so I just kind of did the first one, and obviously it was life-changing. And from there, kind of took off from there.
Dude, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's funny. It's God works, man. Like your past in obviously the Mormon church and your mission, and then you lead, and then you've got a skill set that kind of helps get you in the room, as you put it. So I like that, man. It's a great cause. And I don't even know if cause is a big enough thing to call. It's a mission that Tim is, God, he's amazing with his vision and just how resilient all of his team and people like you that get involved with that are. All right, so you're tell me. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. I'm not even gonna quote your website. I want you to just tell us firsthand, what is your main mission with We Are the They, the men that you're building, leading, inspiring, empowering. What is your mission?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of bridge those two things, when I started working with OUR, and there's another group called the Child Liberation Foundation, but I came back from one of the ops, and this is where We Are the They kind of first kind of became a seed. We'd had a very dangerous one. It was in Mexico. We took down some really bad dudes, and my girlfriend had picked me up from the airport in my truck. And on the way back from the airport, I'm telling her about this op, and I'm just jazzed about it. I'm just like, we just did this rescue and all this stuff. And she pulls the truck over and she says, "Hey, I really don't want you to do this anymore." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Did you not just hear what I said? We rescued these kids." And she's like, "I know, but it's a really dangerous environment, and it's not safe. It's just not a good environment." And I said, "I know, but like, this is part of my life's mission now." And she says, "Well, I know, but why can't they just do it?" And without thinking, I said, "Well, there is no they. Like, we are the they." And when I said that, I was like, "Oh, wow, that is something." And I got chills on my body. And I was like, wow, what a way to think of life. And so I got it tattooed on my arm. It was my first ever tattoo. I never thought I'd get one. And, it says, "We are the they." And from that day forward, I always wanted to do something with that. It was such a beautiful motto to me. It meant so much. And then I've been a real estate agent for 17 years. I've been one of the top agents in the country. That's where I really kind of created my name and my network and all that stuff. But I kind of got to a point. I sold the most expensive home in Utah 4 years ago. It was a $32.5 million house, made almost a 7-figure commission in one day. And I just got to this point where it was completely unfulfilling. I could have just kept coasting, doing that for the rest of my life. And I just wanted to do something that had more impact. And so I started leaning into that. I started trying to figure out where I would go next, what I would do. And the two things that kept coming back to me, people said, "I'm stuck in life," like I talked about it. And then they said, "Where do I find a group of friends like you have?" You spoke about people from Utah. There's so many of us here, and we just really do have an incredible group of men that I get to hang out and call my friends. And I was like, wow, I know exactly how to do that. Like, I've just written a book called You End Up Where You're Heading: The Hidden Dangers of Living a Safe Life. Really helps men and women, everybody, to be able to break through that place where they feel stuck. And so I just leaned into it, and it took me about 2 years, but I formed We Are the They, and I knew it was going to be a mastermind. I was going to cap it at a certain number of people, and we were going to essentially help men in all aspects of life. And basically what I wanted to do is, I'd been on this 10-year journey. I said, I can put this 10-year journey into 2.5 years, and I know it'll change their lives because I know what it did for me. And so ultimately, the course is everything I learned in those 10 years, shrunk down to 2.5 years. There's 10 areas to life, talk about mindset, health and body, leadership, social dynamics, getting your house in order, finances, wealth creation, things like that, healthy emotions, romantic relationships, friendship, your spiritual life, having a passionate work life, and then putting this all together. And so, long story short, I put together this program, and the whole purpose of it is to help create better men, help everybody, no matter where you're at, to, there's really 5 pillars, I would say, to my program. Number 1 is to take a moral stand. One of the things with my group is you got to come into an integrity. Number 2 is, after you've taken a moral stand, is you got to change your behaviors. Like, what do you need to stop doing? What do you need to start doing? We all know. And so, you make those changes, and that's what we try to help you do. Now, with doing that, it's going to be really hard. So the third one is to have a group around you to support you and connect. And that's where the 50 people really do that. And then we have the 4th thing is accountability, which we have a ton of in the group. And then the 5th one is to find a mentor. And so, and so through this program, through everything that I'm doing, we help men to do that. And super proud of it. We've been going almost 2 years now, and had about 350 men so far join the movement. And every single day I get to connect with these men. I get to help these men. I get to work with them, and just whatever they need, we support each other. And, last night, one of the guys' wives had a birthday party. I think 25 dudes showed up, and it's just a really beautiful experience. Every day there's stuff going on with all these guys, and just relationships being formed.
Gentlemen, let me take a step away from the conversation real quick to let you know of a new resource I have just published. The link will be in the show notes to purchase it. But if you've ever felt like you didn't quite understand the spiritual battle and the supernatural realm that we fight in daily, the Bible talks about powers of darkness, demonic forces, evil and good, darkness and light. We are at war spiritually. If you haven't ever quite fully comprehended that or understood how to approach that battle and tactically, strategically engage in that war, I've created a simple handbook, guidebook, roadmap called Operation 333, the Little Black Book on Strategic Spiritual Warfare. Grab a copy today, share it with somebody that you know that is, maybe you can do a Bible study together with it. Maybe it can be a resource for small groups. Give it to somebody. They're priced very competitively. You should be able to buy a handful of those and then give them away to your friends. I hope it serves you. Let's get back to the conversation with our great guest here at Last in Line Podcast. So when you talk about networking and community, 3 of those 5 pillars are related to that. Like, they're people oriented. There are people involved in 3 of those 5, and interaction and accountability and those kinds of things. Talk to somebody, and maybe even to me, like, let's say guys may not have the resources that another group of guys have to invest to, one would even say, buy a network, by getting in a mastermind, or buy, friends, or whatever you want to call it. It's an investment is how I see it, but people will call it what they call it. What if resources were out of the picture, out of the equation? Give us some tips or maybe some things that have been successful for you in being such a good network, like just being good at connecting. And
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is to never look at it transactionally, like you just explained.
That's right.
I mean, ultimately, you're either paying for something with money or time or effort. Like, you're always paying for everything with something. I think most people are so used to things. There's 3 types of friendships. This is probably important to touch on. There's friendships out of pleasure, like you just enjoy doing things with each other. There's friendships out of utility, like I do this for you, you do this for me, we benefit each other's lives. And then there's the deep, lasting, beautiful, loving friendships. There's the real, the ones that we want to have, like best friends. Those are the 3 types of friendships. And most people's friendships are ones of utility or ones of pleasure. And those are great. And I think it's just important to know what they are. Like, I enjoy going to hang out with these guys, but I don't really want to go that deep with them. I don't really want to spend my time with them. I just enjoy watching football with them. Like, I went to a fantasy football draft last night, and there's 10 dudes in the group, and about 5 of them are my best friends. Some of the deepest relationships I have in my life. 2 or 3 are guys that are, just enjoy being around them. And then 2 or 3, I don't really know that well. I can barely see them, and it's okay to have these different types of friendships. But like, I think everybody wants to have at least a couple friends that are in that best friend category where you really know each other. You go, you love each other. You will do anything for each other. You're not afraid to, you can be yourself completely, right? Like, but now, how do we build those? There's a couple different things. Now, if you're just trying to build a network and it's for business or whatever else, that's pretty simple. Just create value everywhere you go. Create enough value. Like, find ways to serve other people in every aspect of life. If you want ones out of pleasure, figure out what you like to do and go do those things. And in the process of doing those things, you'll meet other people that like doing those things. If you love to rock climb, go rock climbing. You'll meet other rock climbers and you have friendships of pleasure. Like, you just enjoy each other's company. You like going out to the bars, and you'll meet other people at the bars that like to go out to the bars. Like, if people are like, I know who to go to the bar with, I'm like, go to the bar and then find other people that like going to the bar. Like, that's a friendship out of pleasure. If you like going to football games, same thing, right? But if you want the deep, lasting friendships, what it requires is, we're so used to just everything being surface that it takes depth. And let me explain this the best way I can, John. Is, most men they don't trust the love they get. And the reason why is because they think to themselves, they're wearing these masks. Lewis Howes covers this really well in his book, The Mask of Masculinity. But, they have all these different masks on, and sometimes it's the athlete mask. Sometimes it's the, it's the wealthy guy mask. Sometimes it's the, the macho guy. So whatever it might be. But ultimately, what it does is it prevents people from getting to know the real us. And even if someone's trying to love us or like us, we think to ourselves, well, if they knew who I really was, they wouldn't love me. And he's a great example. I had him on my podcast pretty recently. He talked about this is, when he was little, he was sexually abused. And he always thought if anyone knew this, they would not love me. So every time people tried to love him, they thought, man, if they knew who I really was, if they knew what really happened to me, they wouldn't love me. So he couldn't accept the love he was getting. It wasn't until he got vulnerable, authentic about this, that he let himself be seen for who he truly is. And all of a sudden he gets to see, oh, they still love me. And if they didn't, well, then yeah, they're not good friends. Right. But like everybody still loved him. And he's like, wow, I can trust the love I'm getting. And so with my men, we like to create atmospheres where we just, you can't change anybody. Like all we do is create a container safe enough for men to want to change themselves. And then I just try to inspire that change. And so these men show up and, you know, and they, for the first time in their life, they're like, God, I've always wanted to talk about this. I finally feel safe to do it. And they see that they're accepted in that state instead of being destroyed, or instead of being, you know, I had an example I shared recently on my podcast. One of the guys in one of my groups, we had this boat trip that we did, and we're sitting there on the beach, and he says, you know, Jimmy, I feel like I'm just not connecting like I wanted to with the men. It's been 9 months and I'm just not getting the depth to the relationships that I want. I said, can I be honest with you? And he said, yeah. I said, you're one of the few guys in the group that's refused to be vulnerable. And I said, if you're willing to go there, I can teach you how to do that right now. There was 10 of us sitting in a circle. He goes, let's do it. So I started digging into a little bit about his life, and he's acting like everything's okay. And he's a very successful man, has a good family, but I know he has a kid that he doesn't get along with. I know because that kid is in my coaching program for the youth that we do. And I said, what about your relationship with your son? And he said, oh, it's great. I said, no, it's not. What about the relationship with your son? And he's like, well, this and this. And next thing we know, after a series of questions and just coaching him through it, he says, I feel like my son's a disappointment. I was like, there we go. And how does that make you feel? And then he went into that. And the next thing we know, 5 minutes later of just digging deeper, he talked about how when he was little, his parents weren't there from his mom. They got divorced and she was out with other men instead of spending time with him. So he's never felt worthy, and he's projecting that onto his kids. He's bawling. And I asked the guys around, I'm like, raise your hand if you've never felt closer to him in your life. And every single guy raised their hand. One of the guys starts crying as well. And he's like, dude, I had a relationship like that with my dad, same thing. And boom, boom, boom. And then another guy's like, he starts crying. He's like, I have that relationship with my son. And all of a sudden, they ended up spending 6 hours straight sitting there, connecting, talking, going deep. Their friendship will never be the same. They will forever have a heart connection to their souls, and they'll have that deep relationship. And so that's how you get there. That's what it looks like. But it's willing to take off the mask. It's willing to go, hey, man, you're here. You're worthy to be here. Yeah. By the way, let's get real. Let's talk.
No, you're right. And guys, you know, are real quick to go experience physical pain and hardship with each other. Like we're very willing to go walk, you know, crawl through the mud or go to the weight room or whatever, you know, roll around on a mat somewhere and fight. But emotional vulnerability and emotional pain, we run the other direction. And I just wonder, like, that, I mean, you got to get to that, almost have to get to that level of brokenness in order for guys to rally around you and for that bond to be solidified even more. Now, he could have maybe not done that and still had some decent friendships in the group because they're all doing the same stuff, experiencing the same stuff on that particular trip. But the connection got up to a deeper level whenever we experience that brokenness together. And you talk a lot about fear and overcoming through fear and pushing through fear. You just said it. Some of the greatest accomplishments are on the other side of our fear. Do you have anything in your life? Because, I mean, it sounds like everything you've touched turned to gold to this point, and 17 years of real estate. I mean, biggest
we didn't
house
cover
in Utah, whatever. So
we didn't cover my failures, man. I mean, my first 3 businesses were all failures, you know, didn't make any money. I had a meat business that my partner stole a bunch of money. We were franchising it, door-to-door meat business. And I ended up losing, I got stuck with about $130,000 debt. It took me 2 years to pay off. I was 22 years old at the time. Then, you know, when I got into real estate, I bought 13 houses and the market turned, and I ended up losing 2 of them. I ended up having to take on the debt because they knew I made enough money, but so the bank took a 0% loan. So as soon as I got the meat debt paid off, I got stuck with these 2 short sales that I had to take the debt on. So I paid those off. It was about 150 grand debt over the next, thankfully I was able to pay that pretty quick. You know, and then, I mean, dude, it's like you know, you try all these different things. You have a lot of different successes and failures. I've had plenty of both. I've had 2 engagements I broke off and things didn't work out, but you know, I mean, when I really like, that's part of the program is I share all the parts of my story that don't work. Like I'm only qualified to do this because I had to go through these shifts myself. You know, I had a lot of the same problems that these men deal with, that I had to overcome, and I'm still overcoming. You know, I still have parts of my life that are not figured out. Like I just did a couples retreat down in Cancun with my first group, and I'm single right now. And a lot of people are like, how the hell is Jimmy giving a couples retreat? He's single, you know? And the truth is, it's like, yeah, I'm probably not qualified to do it, but I'm smart enough to bring in two of the top experts in the country. One's a relationship therapist and another one's a coach. And I brought them in to do the heavy lifting. I know how to set up a good event. I know how to set up a good container. I know how to make everyone feel safe. I know how to get the logistics down. So I set that all up and then got myself the hell out of the way. But there was absolutely a level of imposter syndrome that kicked in. Like, should I be doing this? Am I okay to talk about this? Like, I obviously don't have this figured out. You know, I haven't figured out that aspect of my life yet. And so, but being willing to talk about it, I talk about these things with my group all the time, and I get vulnerable in myself. I'm like, gosh, guys, I might have screwed this up. I don't know. Like, this is what felt right to do, but here's the reality. Let's talk about it.
Well, I got to stop you right there. How did you get past that? So with this particular example you're using with the couples retreat, and you did feel like an imposter, you maybe even, I won't use the word fraud because that's a whole different ball of wax, but just, so if you felt that way, talk to guys how you just kind of gave the middle finger to that fear and were like, screw it, I'm doing this anyway because I know there's a greater purpose.
Yeah, well, I said, yeah, sure. I said, well, what's true and what's not true, right? Like, what's true? Jimmy should not be giving relationship advice on how to be married, period. I've never been married. I don't know. I don't know what that's like. So I didn't do that. I didn't get up there. And if I'd have got up for 2 days and taught, here's how you have a great marriage, I would have been a fraud imposter. There was none of that. I didn't do that. All I did is set up the event the right way, right? I brought in the people that are the experts to do it. And when I did teach, I taught from a place of, here, guys, here's something that I just studied and learned that I wanted to do. You know, like we did this one thing called the 5 rules for fighting that I learned on one of my podcasts, a guy named Matt Boggs. And I taught it to him. And they're like, holy shit, that's game changer. Like that's a total marriage changer. And then, you know, Cody Sanchez, if you go to her page, she was on my podcast recently, that she has pinned an exercise that you can do every night with your spouse called team. And I mean, I'm smart enough to read things and go, that sounds really brilliant. And so I read that and I said, wow, that sounds really good. So instead of getting up and acting like it's my material, I said, guys, here's something I learned from Cody Sanchez. T stands for touch. So at the end of the night, you'd have a 10-minute meeting and you make sure you're touching. Then E stands for educate, something you learned that day. A stands for appreciation. Tell the other person something you appreciate them from the day. And then M is metrics. That's where you get to talk about things that maybe weren't exactly what you wanted. I was like, this is a game changer for your relationship, it looks like. Wow. And so the way I get past imposter syndrome is by not being an imposter. Like I don't ever fake like I'm the guru, like that I know all the answers. I get up and I make fun of myself, call out the elephant in the room, and then I get out of the way. And so I lean into what I know and I don't pretend the things I don't know. And the guys can tell the difference. You know, one of the things I do in my program is bring in a lot of experts, a lot of speakers, and that I absolutely am qualified to do as good as anybody. I'm really good at doing it.
No, yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's key because a lot of times I would say every guy has suffered from that imposter syndrome. So many haters, you know, so many people that are out there, just critics. And especially when everything's magnified on social media and you're showing your life and you're just kind of out there naked, sometimes you are going to have noise to deal with, but sometimes we can just, you know, sometimes just feel insecure and maybe we don't feel qualified, even though we're not trying to be somebody we're not. The imposter syndrome kicks in whenever we're trying to speak from experience and we're doing it with the right heart. And we're trying to serve people, right?
Yeah. Let me give you an exercise if that's happening, because that's another reality.
That's a different,
I do that with my guys. So if you are qualified, but you, for whatever reason, I mean, dude, when I was selling real estate, I had been doing it for 15 years. I'd been one of the top agents literally in the country. And I had days where I woke up and I was like, no one's ever going to buy another house off me. That was just how I woke up that day. And I had to work through that. But I learned this exercise. There's a girl named Jen Gottlieb that taught me this. She's a brilliant human being. And I was at a mastermind and she taught us, she said, make a list, call it your badass list. And you write down every single thing you've ever done in your life that makes you a badass. From the time you were little till yesterday, if that's when it happened, and come up with 50 plus things that make you a badass. When you're done reading the list, you're going to read it. And here's how you get past imposter syndrome. She said, read it as if you're reading it about somebody else. And all of a sudden, because we will give other people so much credit, an expert's just a normal person from the town next to us.
That's
Like
good.
we will give so much credit to strangers, but not to ourselves. And so you read the list as if you're reading about someone else. I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, man, this guy's a freaking badass. I want to hang out with this dude, you know? And so I have him do that exercise. We take it a step further. I have each guy get in the circle and read his list out loud. And then all the other dudes, after he's done with his list, we celebrate him like we just won the Super Bowl every time. And so every guy gets to go in, we read it, we celebrate each other, and then the next guy goes, and the next guy goes. I mean, everybody's on cloud nine by the end. So we keep that list on your phone.
Nice.
Anytime imposter syndrome creeps in, go back and read your badass list. So I recommend everybody do that.
Wow. I can't believe I've never heard of that. That's pretty incredible. I mean,
Jen's the one that taught me that. And then I kind of created the exercise around it. The reason why the celebration's important. I had a dude one time at my house. We were all hanging out, and he just kept talking down on himself. And this guy is a badass. Like, dude is a legit baller. And I said, dude, I am done with you talking yourself down. I said, you're going to sit. This is the safest room you've ever been in. Right now, in front of us, tell us everything that makes you amazing. And then we just kept screaming. We're like, yes, yeah. We're just cheering him on. And you saw him kind of light up. And I'm going to combine these two things and make it an exercise for my men. And it's powerful, man. There were a lot of tears shed.
That's pretty cool. No, that's real good. Well, man, okay. So for the sake of time, I want to be respectful of it. And so are you currently no longer doing real estate, or you just kind of have that going on the side in the shadows?
Yeah, so I still have a real estate team. I turned it over to my partner, Tyler Bennett, and he runs all that for me. So I'm still like part of the face of it. And I, do my events and I network and send him the leads, but he's the operation. So he does everything as far as
the reason I asked that is because my wife is in commercial real estate. She's an accountant, but I know that kind of that scene and just sales in general. I've been in it for 25 years. We kind of like the kill. Like, we like to hunt. We like to kill. What is your kill nowadays? Because I know you still have this passion, this fire, this thing in you that drives you. What is your version of that kill and that pursuit now?
Sure. It's a great question. Yeah. I mean, it's these events, man. Like, every single one of these events, like when it's over and I can look back and I'm getting these texts and these messages of how it's changed these guys' lives. That's the kill for me. It's like to plan something in my mind, come up with this whole thing, this whole 3-4 day weekend, figure it out, execute it to that level that it works, and just know that I absolutely crushed it and it was life-changing for these men, that they'll be able to take that back to their families. That's the kill now. I mean, it's just, it's a very different thing. I'm not like closing, like every time I've opened my program, it's sold out in 48 hours. And so it's like, I have these 4 leadership groups now, and, there's a waiting list for those. And so I'm not like, it's not like I'm afraid of opening that group, and it's not like I sold another one, like they sells right away, right? And it's not like this everyday sell for the tribe or whatever. But it's really about just executing, like having a vision for what I want something to be. And I'm stretching myself, I'm pushing myself. I threw my first conference last year. I had 500 people. I had some huge speakers come in, and that event could not have gone better. And by the time it's done, you just kind of take it in. And I always, anytime I throw an event, I try to take at least 10 minutes and just soak it in and kind of just see everybody and look and just kind of appreciate what you're doing there. But I would say that's probably the kill for me now.
All right. Before I let you go, man, what's your pipe dream? Like, what is kind of down the road for you, as this thing grows, and obviously to make an impact in hundreds of thousands of families, if not millions of families going forward. But what's your dream, if you've even been able to quantify it yet?
Man, I mean, for the most part, I'm pretty much living it right now. I love what I get to do. It's a dream job. I basically retired when I stepped away from real estate. I never had to work again if I didn't want to, but this is the most satisfying thing I've ever done. For me, it's about slowing down at this point. I want to spend more time in nature, more time building family and things like that. And that's where I'm really putting my focus. I don't have this giant vision of, this thing being the biggest thing ever. I mean, I would like to have more and more members join because I know the impact it'll have on them and their families. But I mean, I'm about at capacity for what I can handle right now. And so I don't know, man. I don't, for me, this is like, I just want to keep living a good life and keep being a good person and trying to help other people.
That's good, man. That's good. All right, I lied. One more. I've got to know, because somebody that's been down the road you've been down, and now you're doing things for people that, I mean, you can't really even put a dollar amount on it because of how downstream it's going to impact their family tree at some point. Man, who is your, and you don't need to give me a name, but like, do you have a mentor, and maybe give guys advice on how to pursue that? Like, cause that's an awkward moment. Like
Yeah,
that's,
no, that's a
you
great
can't
question.
just wake up in the morning and say, okay, Joe down the street, I'm going to ask him, so give me an idea of what goes into finding a good one, and what's the value in it for you personally?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I actually have a lot of theories on this that I think are really good. So number one is you want to look at it as there's like 10 levels of like where you're at versus where you're trying to get. Okay. And most people make the mistake. They're like, I want to get to know that guy. And there's way too many levels up. You're not going to be able to get access. Even if you did, you don't have any value to that person. It's just not going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people to try to find somebody doing a little bit more than you are. Try to go up one or two rungs at a time. Right. So for me, my original mentors were like high school baseball coaches, leaders in my church, stuff like that. My mission president, then my leaders became my real estate coaches, Bill Pipes and Mike Ferry. And then my mentors became, I hired, this woman named Melissa, who became a mentor, and Kathy. Now my personal coaches, I'm personally coached right now by three men. Ed Milet is I'm a one-on-one client of his. Neil Strauss, who is just probably the most brilliant mind out there. And then this guy named Stefanos, it's a relationship expert that I seeked out because I loved his stuff. And so these three are personally coaching me one-on-one right now. They're my current mentors. What I look for is who's where I want to be, who's gone down the path that I want to follow. Like to me, Ed's where I want to be in 10 years. So I'm like, okay, that's the guy that I want to hire for that. Neil Strauss and Stefanos went through this life that I lived in my 35 to 41 years and that's kind of where I'm in the process of going. And so I hired those two guys to help me with that transition that I'm working on. And so you want to find people that have done what you're trying to do, people that are where you're at, like truly have, though, not say they have, right? And as far as finding a mentor, though, I mean, it can be as easy as a book, a podcast. Like I pay Ed a ridiculous amount of money to be my mentor because his value is that. I have 350 guys paying me right now to mentor them. So I owe it to those people to put my time and attention there versus this random guy that's not willing to commit. When I had the opportunity to work with Ed, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And yeah, you pay for that, and I created a lot of value for him. I recently had Johnny Manziel on my podcast, and the documentary just had come out the week before on Netflix, #1 documentary in the country. And Ed hit me up. He's like, how the hell did you get Johnny on your podcast? He goes, I've been trying to get him on mine. And I said, I got this friend here. Let me connect you. So I connected two people together. He sends him Johnny Manziel's number. They're setting it all up. Like I found ways to create value for my mentor to go out of my way and do things, right? I've done that with multiple things for Ed, for Neil, and these other people. So you want to create value for them. And then they can put time into you. Because if you're just trying to suck from them, these are really busy humans. I've never been busier. I don't have enough time for my friends and my family, let alone some random kid on Instagram that wants to build a rival company. Like I'll teach you how to do it if you want to pay me, but I'm not going to give you all my information that I've spent this year alone. I've spent 500 grand on coaches, period. I have, like, I practice what I preach, and so that's how you find a good mentor. By the way, it can be free. Like it started for me, cassettes in my car. My original mentors were Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field, Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, Zig Ziglar, and Jim Rohn. I listened to those CDs every single day for 5 years in my car. It was free. Those can be your mentors. So you just want to find whatever you're looking for, who inspires you, whose life do you truly want to have in your own, and then go find ways to get proximity to those people. That might be coaching with them. That might be joining their program. That might be donating to a cause they support, whatever that looks like. Find a way to create value in their life.
100%, 100%. Too many times. And you hit it. I think when we started this is part of the disappointment, or I don't even remember how you worded it, but our wrong expectations. So when you go into any situation,
all pain in life comes from unmet expectations.
Yeah. So set realistic ones, and then, then you won't be constantly disappointed. So no, man, it's been great, man. It's been an honor to get to know you, dude. I think, I don't know. I think we're cut from the same cloth a little bit, and it's good to hear your passion for the guys and their families, and all you're doing, because it sounds like you're pouring more into them than you're getting back a lot of times. And so I think that's part what we're doing here is servant leadership, and that's really what it's about. So good to meet you. Where can we? How do you want us to bother you on social media? How do you want us to go find your resources? Where can we kind of reach out to you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, my Instagram, Mr. Jimmy Rex. That's the best place to reach out. I do answer all my own DMs. But that's where I post, all my new podcasts I put on my story. That's where I put when I'm speaking. That's where I put just what I'm up to when my group opens up. That's where we sell it through, all those things. So that's the best place to follow me is Mr. Jimmy Rex on Instagram. My website is the same, Mr. Jimmy Rex.
All right. Sounds good, man. Guys, he is the deal, the real deal, legit. It's awesome to watch because you're making a huge impact with that. He's been Jimmy Rex. We've been last in line. Be blessed.